The Chiefs are back-to-back Super Bowl champions.
The Raiders have requested an interview with Chiefs defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo for their head coaching vacancy, according to DM Rossini. And the Jets have also requested an interview with Steve Spagnuolo. As we mentioned, Mr. Bargonzi is in meeting with the Jets today for his potential GM job. And if so, I think he's going to bring in one of these two coaches. That would be my guess. The Raiders are interesting because Tom Brady is going to have a say in this hiring franchise and hiring cycle. And he has a lot of respect for Spags. And this kind of leads me to believe that they may be going the veteran route and not a young whippersnapper, in Vegas. And we'll talk more about which team's better here in the later segment. But pretty interesting. Spags, getting 2 interviews. Nagy getting 1. He's meeting with the Jets today in a virtual interview. And, I think if Baganzi goes to the Jets, he's going to probably want one of his guys, and we'll just see how much the Johnson family is willing to, to let that GM make that decision. If so, Steve Spags takes one of these jobs. Now, the question is, if he leaves, is it a better deal? Is it a better team going to the Raiders or the Jets? I think it's mixed results for both. I think
you don't have a quarterback with either team.
You don't have a quarterback in either one. He's going to have to hire a top shelf offensive coordinator. Maybe he brings Nick Kafka down from the Giants and makes him assistant head coach, or something like that. If he's looking to leave, then Nick Kafka's interviewing with the New Orleans. He's interviewing with the New Orleans Saints for their head coaching position as well. So he may not be there.
Love the Chiefs.
He's going to have to get a really good offensive coordinator in both cities. But I think I would rather work for Woody Johnson in New York than I would for the guy in Raidersville. I just don't.
Wouldn't it be the match made in heaven? Tom Brady and Spags,
it depending on how much influence that Tom Brady really has.
First, Brady does have another job, right?
Yes,
and probably the most significant weeks of his career to date. His first playoff games. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure they have the Super Bowl this year as well. So how much time is he going to devote to? I'm sure he'll maybe give some suggestions to Mark Davis, but do you think he's going to jump in the interviews?
Yes, he'll be part of everything.
Okay,
he'll be a part of whatever the league will allow him to do. Yeah. And I think the fact that Spags was basically the first coach that the Raiders announced that they would be interviewing tells me that Tom goes, okay, look at. He's taken my advice. Look at the last hiring cycle. The veteran guys, the veteran coaches, the guys with experience who've had success and failure in the NFL level and a variety of coaching levels, have done well.
Yeah, true.
Instead of the young pups and the kids, who are young, and there's a few hits there, but a lot of misses.
I want to see the war. I want to see Spags and I want to see.
And Spags, I think Spags being in the Raiders.
I want to see that matchup right there.
If Tom has a big say, that's where he'll lean. And I think ownership's going to follow in whatever kind of Tom says, because,
go to the Raiders. Go to the Raiders. I want to see that matchup. Go to the Raiders.
Since Daddy left the building, the Raiders have.
I don't know how good that place is going to be for Spags' health. Al Davis.
Mark Davis.
I think he still looms over the organization, but he's got to be just really. His spirit is like pissed.
It's got to be, it's got to be pissed. And there's rumors that a lot of players want out of want to be gone.
Yeah, Crosby.
Crosby's one of those guys. I think they're going to have to really focus on making sure he's content and he's happy. Now, if Spags comes, I don't think you're going to hear any Crosby rumors being traded.
Yeah.
He's got 2 years left on his deal, and I suspect he'll finish his career in Kansas City. That's just my gut reaction.
Spags with Crosby and
Spags with Crosby, and they draft better.
I know.
The problem is Tom Telesco is the GM of the Raiders, and he's the guy who ran the Chargers into the ground.
If Spags leads to the Raiders or the Jets, if I'm Spags, I'm choosing the Jets, because you got Sauce Gardner, you got all the other guys, the young DBs.
Reed might be leaving though. There's a lot of guys leaving from the Jets too.
You got a good defense over there. You got all good offensive pieces. You just don't have a quarterback. You go get a Kirk Cousins, or you know what I mean. You go get somebody like that to the help the flow of the water. You know what I mean. But other than that, man, Spags ain't going anywhere anyway. So I don't know why we talking about this.
I don't know about that.
Why'd you put the question up there?
Kansas City, he's just to fool everybody, man. It's
the highest paid defensive coordinator in the game, and that's going to have some say.
This is their way of
Lou said back in the day, Spags won't get hired.
This is their way. Now again, this is the other part of the hiring cycle, and the advantage that you have is to bring in guys from other teams. And they kind of have to give their vision. They have to, they have to basically sell themselves and not that they're going to give secrets on where they're coming from, but you can read between the lines and kind of see, how things tick and so forth. So the interview process is fascinating. And I'm assuming that they probably have a very short list. And
an actual list.
Right. And I would venture to guess that Spags is not on that short list. And nothing against Spags. It's just, the way this is going. And if Mark Davis wants to hire, it's got to be a splash. Right.
He's Clinsbury. That's why I'll go get
right. So
maybe,
I don't know. This would be the most bizarre, but there have been mentions that John Gruden is back. His name is back, kind of filtering through the league.
Yep.
We know how much Mark Davis loves John Gruden. Now,
I can't see them going.
I don't know if Brady. I don't know if Brady loves Gruden. I don't know if Tom Telesco loves Gruden, but we know Mark Davis does.
Yeah. I can see Chucky with the Jags. I can see Chucky with the Jags,
Florida.
I can see down with the Florida.
Go anywhere. He spent. I guess he spent part of the summer with Dennis Allen in New Orleans camp. He was with Coach Reed a few days in the Chiefs camp. So he's got his little YouTube thing going on. So he is. What kind
of coach is Gruden anyway? What kind of coach is Gruden?
He's an offensive genius. He's an offensive genius. You know what's interesting about what Brady?
He was Coach Reed's offensive coordinator for part of the time in Philadelphia.
Okay.
He worked with him in Green Bay.
Yeah. He the one that took over the Raiders.
Offensive coordinator. Where if he come back to be a Chiefs offensive coordinator?
I don't think he's going to do that. I think he comes back as a head coach or nothing. I think that's just the way he's going to roll.
Again, the biggest thing with the Raiders is the impact. Now, what's interesting about what Brady has done? What has he done today? He spoke to Bill Belichick, who basically said, "Thanks, but no thanks. I'm staying, even with a $10 million." And then he goes to Spags. He wants defense.
Per sources.
Okay. Per sources. I think the sources on this one are pretty legit. I don't think Bill Belichick was ever going to do that to North Carolina after being hired 3 weeks ago. He's not doing that.
Yeah.
10 million buyout or not. But
talk about it.
I think that if I'm the Raiders, I hire a very defensive minded coach, because not only are you going to battle the Chiefs, but you're going to battle the offensive genius and with Chargers and with the Broncos. And obviously that's where their focal point needs to be. And then they bring in a really good offensive coordinator. They might have to overpay to get the right guy. And then it's the decision of who's going to be the quarterback next year. Maybe he brings in Carson Wentz and says, okay, we'll give you a year while we develop a young quarterback like they did with Alex Smith. I don't think there's not a surefire quarterback in this draft. And, or maybe they go after, they look at the Vikings situation and maybe they make a deal with McCarthy.
Well, the Raiders are 6.
Brady's had a significant influence on Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, that too.
Is Coach Prime could that be kind of a?
That's gonna be the surprise. I think he's gonna go to the Raiders. Watch.
I think he wants the Cowboys job. I really do.
Coach Prime.
Coach Prime.
Wait a second. Hold on. Speaking of the Cowboys, Jerry Jones had like an Emmy performance in Landman this past weekend.
Yeah, he did.
Oh my God! One scene.
I didn't watch it yet. watch it yet.
I swear to God, and I don't know if it's somebody else mentioned this, but I got the same sense. He was, I mean, it was to me, I think it was like almost completely unscripted, and he was speaking from the heart and almost like paralleled his own life, the way he was talking to John Hamm about getting his family around him to be able to, run a business together and all that. I mean, but it was just, he looked like he'd been doing this his whole life.
It was, what the part they don't show in the clip, and I'm not going to spoil it, was kind of how he got rich. And I thought that was fascinating.
Was it on Paramount?
Yeah, it's on Paramount Plus.
Okay.
Yeah, how he got rich, and then he goes into what happened after that.
Yeah, and I think all of that was true.
I don't think it was a script. I think he just said, "Hey, Jerry, we can talk about."
That was, and I think that's why it was so good, is that he didn't have to make it up.
I mean, he was emotional. It was, it made
you
you think of Jerry Jones in a completely different light.
And
Jerry Jones don't need more money.
And that's why I think he was tearing up a little bit, because it struck a chord.
He is 82, right?
Is he? 95?
He's up there.
Yeah, he's in his 80s.
95, 102.
He's a shrewd businessman. He stopped the Bears from interviewing their head coach. Somebody
put in the chat. Seen that. Somebody put in the chat. Let Elon Musk buy the Cowboys.
But that's only good until the 14th, because on the 14th that exclusive negotiating window lapses. And then Mike McCarthy can do whatever he wants. So it looks like on the surface, just like Jerry, always pushing things to the limit, that, he must be going to re-sign him. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't think it's any different. I think it's just him exercising. That's what's in his deal, and we can still say no.
But back to Spags. I don't think Spags is going anywhere. Nick said
I just don't feel it, and it's not because of Spags. I think it's just because of the way the league works.
Hey, I'm glad he's getting interviews, and I'm glad his name's. It's a big sign of respect.
Yeah,
he's the only 4-time defensive coordinator Super Bowl champion, about to be the 5th, a record that probably will never be broken. And he could go down. He'll go down as probably one of the greatest defensive coordinators.
Belichick has 2 with the Giants as well.
Yeah, 2. Yeah,
2 with the Giants. Yeah,
with under Parcells, and then 6. Obviously
Jets
with the
will
Patriots.
hire Rex, which I think Jets hire
Bronco
Rex,
too.
man.
I can't see that. I think Rex is a.
Rex is a personality. I like Rex.
This is a semi-family show.
I think. Except unless you make some sort of odd comment in the chat, then not so much. So
not a fan of him.
So I think Rex. This is the only job that he, I think, is a prime candidate for, and is the only job he can be a prime candidate for, because of the success that he's had there, the fact that his father coached there back in the day, and that maybe he's got a relationship with Woody Johnson, and Woody Johnson really wasn't involved in the hiring process last time.
Mm-hmm.
So he brings a very unique perspective, and in what you can say what you will about his personal life and how he acts or whatever,
on that field,
but he got that team with Mark Sanchez at quarterback to 2 straight AFC championships.
Yeah,
and we've already talked about the talent that they have on the defensive side of the ball. So you talk about, if Spags went there, these other defensive coaches, they got to get the offensive coordinator right. They got to get the quarterback right. All that stands. You can say the same thing, whether it's Rex.
Ryan's the defense.
How about his defenses with the Ravens were pretty damn good too.
They were legit. They're legit. Yeah.
So I think, again, I wouldn't say he's like the best candidate out there, but I think he might be the best candidate for the Jets.
He earned the respect, yes.